the latest episode of The Claw's Corner. Today's guest is a guitarist, singer, songwriter, producer, and author. He also pursues his own projects, which include the conception of an all-digital record company called Potomac Records, as well as an award-winning candle company called Shining Soul Candle Company. So without further ado, please welcome the author of The Moments That Make Us, the guitarist and singer of Evick, as well as being the guitarist for Bret Michaels Solo Band for the last 20 years. Of course, I'm talking about Pete Evick. Pete, welcome to The Claw's Corner. How are you?
I'm great, buddy. I'm great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, no, I'm so glad. Dave Tedder, who represents you in some way, he said, "Rich, I have a great guest for you." And I know you and I have been going back and forth, so I'm so happy to finally get this because doing my research on you has been so much fun.
It's interesting to hear. I can't wait to hear what you found out.
Oh yeah. Well, first I want to start off with two songs that you recently released. One was a cover song, 99 Red Balloons. And the other one was My Best Days. So first, let's start with the cover of 99 Red Balloons.
Yes, sir.
Why'd you pick that song?
So the COVID thing was going on, and then the Ukrainian war broke out. The short story of it is, as a child of the 80s, I was terrified of the nuclear conflict and the Russian stuff. I was terrified of it, and it haunted me for an enormous amount of part of my life. In fact, there's an entire chapter about it in my book, Moments That Make Us, that I wrote 5 years ago. And the chapter in that book talks about what 99 Red Balloons meant to me as a child, because it was an anti-war protest song, specifically the Russian conflict. And so I woke up one morning and the world's still not recovered from COVID, really. And I saw the news headlines, CNN, with the Russian and the word nuclear. And I just thought, are we really here again? You know, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't comprehend it. And for about a week, it's all I was obsessed with it, to the point where everybody around me, my girlfriend, my business partners, Bret, no one could stand me. I was running around like this child thinking the bombs were dropping again. I knew they weren't, but I was petrified of it as a kid. I can't explain the terror. And so no one wanted anything to do with me. So I went in my studio and I just reverted back to a child and went back to, I was just jamming the song, just playing the song myself and goofing with it as therapy for me. And then I started to mess around with recording it. And the unique thing about it was, when I recorded it, I hated it. I did the vocal. I did the vocal there. If you listen closely, there's two vocals. There's a low vocal and a high vocal, very similar to Axl Rose's technique on like Don't Cry and some of that stuff, and Use Your Illusion, where it's not really a harmony. It's just the two different octave vocals. And I put the low vocal on it, and the beginning sounded cool, but once the song kicked in, there was no energy to it. It just sounded kind of lame. And then I did the high vocal, and I listened to the high vocal by itself, and it just was awful. It was just like some dude screaming, you know what I mean? And then I thought, what can I do, man? Now I've made all this effort. Let me see if I can do anything. And I put both vocals up together, and all of a sudden it felt, to me, magical. It felt special. The vocals together blended, and it made the song sound worthy of letting people hear it. So I shot the video for it and just kind of put it out there, not wanting anything from it, just hoping that the video, there's a whole lot of people I know that do this whole, I don't want to watch the news anymore. I don't watch the news. I had to stop watching the news. I get that, but you also have to know, I feel like, let's be aware of what's going on. This wasn't an opinion. This invasion happened. This was real. You know what I mean? It wasn't, there weren't fear tactics. It wasn't like CNN or Fox were saying, oh, Putin may drop a nuclear weapon. It was him saying it.
Exactly.
And so I just thought, maybe there's a bunch of people not watching the news that'll watch my video and at least see a little bit of what's happening. And so I put it out there.
Yeah, no, I saw the video and I loved your version of it.
I appreciate it.
Now, are you using that song to raise money for Ukraine?
Not personally, because there's so many different ways to raise. When I first put the video out, I just kind of said, you can find your own way to donate. There's so many different ways. It was, to me, just to raise awareness that the conflict was real and happening. And then hopefully you would find your, if someone goes, oh man, what can I do to help? They'll find a way to help.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I love what you're doing, because like you said, there's so many people. I don't even want to know about that. But I think people should be informed, and people that might not want to be informed can find out through music and through what you do. So I do love that you're doing that. And I think you're right. You're like, if they're really interested, they can find a way like, oh, we can give money this way or we can give help that way. So I love
Yeah,
it. So I wanted to talk about your other songs. It's an original song. It's called My Best Days. I want to talk about how it's an inspiration to those who feel as if they have already lived their prime.
right. It's exactly it. So again, you know, uh, my band Evick, we've been together for 25 years or whatever. I've been in Bret's band 20 years. And once I joined Bret's band, my writing and my producing and my focus all kind of went with him and his music. And I don't do a lot of music with my band Evick anymore, original music. This was the first original song I'd written in maybe 15 years for my band. I mean, me and Brett have put out all kinds of records and stuff. But and again, it was during COVID. And COVID was a really weird thing for us musicians because we spent our lives on the road and engaging with people, and all of a sudden it was just gone, you know. Um, and so, but I kept hearing and watching, and everybody talking about the old days. There's songs, and I've written songs about nostalgia too. In fact, the new Bret Michaels song that's coming out is called "My Best Days," or is called I'm sorry, Back in the Day, and it's a song that uh talks about it's not this song is about the good times we had back in the day, but there's a whole lot of during COVID, there was this whole kind of everything sucks now. I wish I was in high school again, or I wish I was in college again, or there, it became a very negative connotation. I just couldn't deal with the fact that my thought was like, if you guys really think that your best days are behind you, then put a bullet in your head. And this can't be, this just can't be all of a sudden from here on out, from 2020 on, the world sucks. It just can't be, So I wrote that song to convince myself that it has to be, there has to be better days. And I just really hoped that even if I touched one person, I hope that one other person would hear that and go, fuck yeah, you're right. You're right. The best days can't be over yet. It was important. It was a call to my friends, the people I love, to say, we'll get through this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that because I'm 54 right now and I am having the time of my life. I'm doing this show. I have cerebral palsy, so I do motivational talks at libraries. I did a show at the Palace Theater, which is a small place in Waterbury, Connecticut. Before that, I did comedy. Then in my 20s, I was in band. So I wrote a book. I had a self-published book. So yeah, when I talk to people who are my age, like, oh boy, I miss the good old days, like you just said. I said, why? Some people think that this is what my opinion. I think a lot of people live the life they think is expected of them because they're so worried about what people think of them. Like, oh, I'm too old for that. I said, if you're not neglecting your responsibilities, why do you have to stop having fun? As long as you're healthy, you can still do what you want, if you're not hurting anybody, but you're just having fun. So many people. So I've always had that mentality. And I love the fact that you wrote a song about that because so many people, especially as they get older, oh yeah, I miss those. You said the college days, high school. It's like, really? College or high school and college, those were not the best days of my life. Right now, I'm having the time of my life, and I
I'm
love
glad
where
you
I
get
am.
it. I'm glad
Yeah,
that means a lot that you understand it. And congratulations on writing a book. I
yeah,
can't wait to check it out myself, man.
yeah. It's on Amazon, self-published, and because it's in the vein of the Twilight Zone with a little bit more gore. I love like some of my favorite horror movies are like Evil Dead. It has a lot of humor in it with some gore, and it's like over
Oh,
the
so,
top
so, so
fun.
you wrote a fiction story.
Yeah, it's a fictional book. It's
That's
five
amazing.
Confessions of a Frenetic Mind, Five Tales of Blood Curdling Terror, which really is not. It's not really that blood curdling. It's just that was the title that gets people's attention. But it's a
Sure.
more in the vein of the Twilight Zone, where it's got twist endings. You don't really know what's going to happen, but there's a lot. I did stand up comedy for 5 years, so I have a very good sense of humor, and I injected a lot of humor into it. So I think that it has something for everybody.
Why do you not do stand up anymore?
I don't know. I sort of got bored with it. I was doing it just for fun. And what happened was I did a show and somebody said, Rich, you'd be a huge inspiration to my students. I said, where do you work? He said, a place called Abilities Beyond for people with special needs. So I went there, did a couple shows there. Somebody saw me there and said, oh my God, I would love to have you work at this library. And that led to another place, which led to the Palace Theater. And then that sort of caught on. So with that, I get to do a little bit of inspiration and make it fun. So I get a mixture of both. So I think I sort of just got bored with it. And instead of just saying, well, I'm going to do it because I feel like I should be doing this, I said, let me do what I actually want to do. And then
Right.
that led to this, which is,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, every time I do something, it opens up another door to something else. And I love it. And so right now I started a radio show, and that, because of COVID, the radio station, it was a local community station. It shut down where they couldn't allow people that they didn't know in there. So my last guest said, Rich, he's my editor for this. He goes, I'll create a YouTube channel for you so we could do that. And then now I'm able to get guests like you. I've had Dee Wallace, Adrian Barbeau, Ted Neely from Jesus Christ Superstar. So guests that would never, ever even hear of me. Now I'm able to get people like that through Zoom. So COVID, in a way, actually worked out for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great story.
Oh, thank you. So let's get back to your story, because you have, as I mentioned before, you have so many great stories. So we talked about My Best Days. That was released, and I know it was heavily influenced by Bon Jovi.
On purpose. Completely.
Yes. No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just like me, I'm a huge Bon Jovi fan, and I know you are.
Yeah. So, when most of my solo music really sounds Bon Jovi influenced, and when I sat down to write this one, I just went, man, this is what's coming out, but it just sounds so much like a combination of just older from Bon Jovi and Blood on Blood, and so I went as far as to their bass player Hugh McDonald's a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I went as far as to contact him and send him the song. And I said, I know you can't play on it. That becomes weird, but can you write the bass line for me? And then I'll play on it or get someone else to play on it. So that, because those Bon Jovi bass lines are iconic,
Oh, yeah.
And they really have a lot to do with the way his music sounds. So Hugh wrote the bass line for me, sent me back the notes, and I had my bass player play on it, and that really helped. That was really neat to have it. The only part that I didn't try to make it sound like Bon Jovi was the guitar solo. I just did exactly what I would have done anyway, but the influence is there, Yeah. And then once I had the song down, then I thought, oh, let's take it even a step farther. And as I was producing it, I kept a couple Bon Jovi songs in my Pro Tools file that I would kept referencing back to the production from, back in the day, make it sound like it came off of the New Jersey record, So on purpose, that was kind of my way of being nostalgic. That was my back in the day. The sound of it was the nostalgic part. And the message was, don't look back in the day, so.
Well, we're going to talk about Bret Michaels. I still want to talk about your band for a little bit, but before that, I want to talk about all these bands that you grew up listening to. It must be surreal to be playing with them, being friends with them, going on tour with them. That must be a great feeling.
It's funny. It's 20 years later, and I remember the first year, like 6 gigs into playing with Bret, Slaughter was our opening act one night. It didn't make any sense to me, right? It was weird. Dana is now, I'd consider him one of my great, great friends. The guys in Warrant, the guys in Firehouse are great, great friends to me. And I've made so many, I text back and forth with Ace Frehley. That's fucking weird, right? The one story I have though is we my favorite band in the whole world is the Sammy Hagar era Van Halen.
Yes.
And when Bret decided to make this record called Jammin' with Friends, and the idea was that he would have guests on every single song. And on one particular song, Ace Frehley and Michael Anthony both play on the song. It's our remake of Bret's song, Nothing But a Good Time.
All right.
And because I produce and engineer those records for Bret, I had a mobile studio at the time, and I was flying out to these people's houses and cutting their tracks and stuff. And I had such an amazing day at Michael Anthony's house, but till that day, it had been communication via email and management and stuff like that. And I've met Michael several times before because we've opened up for Sammy's band and stuff. But we're at Mike's house, or we're at Mike's warehouse, and we were finishing the track. And when the track was done, Mike said, "Here, let me give you my phone number." And I actually looked at him and said, "You don't want to do that." And I actually, he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Mike, I know I'm a professional. I'm here. as Bret Michaels guitar player and producer, and you've always seen me how I respect what you're saying, but I said it's going to take one night of me being drunk and just going nuts and texting you nonstop, and I'm going to end, what I consider something awesome that I know you. And he just laughed at me, and I never took Mike's number.
That's
I don't
funny.
know why. I don't know why I took Aces, but I took, but yeah, it's surreal. Every day it's surreal, but it's also surreal to just be a Bret's fan, because in my high school talent shows, I played those Poison songs.
Mhm.
Every talent show in high school, I played a Poison song. I was a Poison fanatic. So, sometimes I look over and we're playing Every Rose in front of 50, 60,000 people, and it's him,
Yeah, that's
and
very cool.
and that's crazy to me. But he's the best friend I've ever had, and there's so much about that guy that no one doesn't know. I mean, everyone loves him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
Yeah.
anyone thinks anything bad about him, but it doesn't even scratch the surface of who and what that guy really is. No one has any idea. And but it's surreal, man. It's the other night we played with Three Doors Down um in Panama City, and that was cool. We played in Atlanta, and the guys from Lit and Hoobastank showed up just to come to the
Mhm.
show and hang out. Uh, it 20 years later, sometimes it's all still surreal. Me and Brett and our band were able to go visit Loretta Lynn. We're tight with her family.
Oh, wow.
2 weeks before she passed away, we were at her house. As far as I know, I don't know, but because it came sudden, no one we knew she was ill, but no one thought it was coming that quick. But I don't know that Brett may have been the last person to see her of other than her family.
Yeah. Wow.
And just sitting there with her that day, and then now here she is. Now it's a month later, but um, who has that kind of experience? Who what rock and roll guitar player has spent Thanksgiving at Loretta Lynn's ranch? Or it's neat. That's all I can say. It's neat.
Yeah. Well, when you asked me that question, there's nobody I know that could ever say that story except for you right now.
Yeah.
Have you ever met, just speaking of musicians, have you ever met Johnny Cash? Because for country, I'm not really a diehard country fan, but like some of the people I do, like Loretta Lynn, I love Merle Haggard, I love Johnny Cash. Did you ever get a chance to sit down
Ne-
and talk to him? Okay.
Never at all. No.
I want to get back to Sammy Hagar and Michael Landis. I do love the David Lee Roth years, but I saw the Sam and Dave tour, which was probably now it's probably about 15, 20 years ago. I can't remember when it was.
Well, that was a lot longer than 15 years ago.
Okay, so yeah.
I was not in Brett's band, I don't think, when that
Oh,
happened.
wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the reason I brought that up was because they were going back and forth, like being headliner and opener, but Sammy Hagar, just you can tell he's just a fun guy, just out there, wants to have fun, and
He
he
made Dave
blew
look
away.
like a clown.
Exactly. That's the point I was going to make. It's like people were walking out in droves during Roth, and I think that unfortunately over the years his ego got the best of him because, like I said, I like that era of Van Halen, but you could just tell, like Sam and even Michael Anthony, you could just tell they're up there having a great time. And it's all about fun. Like he even said one time in an interview, "I don't really do this for the money. I just do it because I want to." And you can
Yeah,
just
yeah.
tell. But
Yeah,
I love that.
I saw that tour. And and I it's a weird thing. I knock on Dave a lot, but I'm a fan of that music too. Van Halen is my favorite band. Hagar Van Halen is my first favorite band. Roth Van Halen is my second favorite band. I love it all. And I love who Dave was. And when
Yeah.
Dave left Van Halen and did Eat 'Em and Smile, I thought, oh fuck, he's gonna win this. Like there was nothing like Yankee Rose. It was the most powerful, greatest thing I had heard and seen in my entire life, right? Um, but then Why Can't This Be Love came out and it blew my fucking mind. At 5150, but the single is Why Can't This Be Love? But
Yeah.
but my thing about Dave is, like, have you ever watched Dave on the Joe Rogan podcast?
I have. Yeah, I listened to him several times, which is sometimes it's difficult to get through. I
It's
want to, sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say there's one part where he went to take a piss and Joe Rogan, he goes,
He says,
"Right."
boy, that
Like,
guy's
nope.
out there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. But my point is, uh, there's part of me that thinks Dave is the biggest clown in the world. Like, what the fuck is wrong with that guy? But he's on a different level. He knows something we don't know. And it's not, it's that can't just be being a clown. He's transcended to something else, and he's somewhere, he studies a lot. He's been around the world, and he took in the martial arts, and he takes in culture, and he takes in all that stuff. There's no denying he does that stuff. So he's like this. Every time he opens his mouth, I just want to punch him in his face because I can't. But there's this underlying that we're the idiots.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, because sometimes he's talking, I'm like, what the hell? Is he just rambling? And then later on, I'll be reading something. Oh, that's what he's talking about. So he knows exactly what he's saying, but like you said, he's on a different level. And I agree. I mean, like with the whole martial arts, he moved to Japan. He trained with the best. I mean, he just, whatever he gets into, he does 1,000%. He'll just become.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. It's like, shut up. Why do you say this? And then you realize sometimes, like, all right, now I know what like. It could take a little while for you to get him.
Yeah, but yeah. I don't have any interest in ever even hanging out with that dude. Like, it's too much for me. I can tell. You know what I mean? Yeah. But Sammy, you walk in a room and he makes you feel like he's your best friend. And I never forget. We filmed. He invited Bret to be on his TV show, The Rock and Roll Road Show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at Bret's house the day they did that, and Sammy was nice enough to let me be on part of the show. But I stepped aside with Sammy. I said, Sammy, we've played a bunch of shows together and we know each other, and Sammy's always nice to me, but we didn't have a minute to speak. You know what I mean? And at this day, we filmed all day long, so we had plenty of time to just speak. And I said, Sam, I just want to tell you, man, I remember the moment in 1986 that they released Why Can't This Be Love on the radio. I remember the moment, and I was only in 8th grade in middle school, but it changed every single thing about me and my life. That moment I heard those synthesizers go wah 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 and the guitar come in, my life changed on a different path forever. And Sammy goes like this, he goes, mine did too. And it was a neat moment, because you don't think of that perspective from the artist, thinking that day changed his life forever too, because the world was waiting. The world was waiting to see what it was going to be, and it was accepted with open arms by the, that was their only, Van Halen's first #1 record. Everyone forgets that sometimes, I think,
Oh, yeah.
Jump was #1 song, but that was the only #1 record. And he's just to experience Sammy Hagar is like nothing you've ever thought of. And experience partying with him and Bret at the same time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the personalities are so large, you just sit and watch, and but super wonderful time. And both of them are very concerned with making sure you're having a good time, which is why they're the greatest frontmen left on the planet.
Well, speaking of that, that's a great segue. What I want to talk about next, then, because you have a story, and I want to hear about this. There was one time, it was Stephen. They wanted either Bret Michaels or Sammy Hagar to not replace him for good, but just for a couple shows, Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. Let's talk about that.
You watched Chuck's podcast, didn't you?
One of them. I was going through a lot of different things to find out more information about you.
That's not really my story to tell. I just know that when it happened, that at the time, HK Management, that manages Poison, was also managing Aerosmith, and Steven was going to go solo and do that country thing, and they were talking about replacing him temporarily just so they could continue to go out. And I don't know enough of the detail, but I know that Sammy Hagar's response was that, what an honor to ask me that, but I'm not going to just become the guy that replaces other famous lead singers.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah.
And then Bret was just basically like, what an honor, but who could fill Steven Tyler's shoes? Like, Bret was just like, thanks, but I'd be crucified by the fans just to even think that I could step in those shoes, much like Axl with Brian Johnson. He did a great job, but there's still an enormous amount of people that, like, you had no fucking business doing that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, neither one of those guys wanted to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Nope, I definitely don't blame them, because they have their own careers, especially like what you said about Sammy, because Sammy already replaced David Lee Roth, and they're just gonna always say, "Oh, there's another lead singer who's gonna replace." What I love about him is that he'll just jam with everybody. He has all these different things with his tequila.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's just having fun. And it's funny because you mentioned when he first joined Van Halen, I think that was their first release, which was probably on VHS back then, but was filmed where I live in Connecticut. It was instead of New
Hartford,
Haven, no, New
New
Haven.
Haven, New Haven.
It wasn't New Haven, it was New Halen,
Yeah,
Connecticut.
yeah. We're gonna call this place New Halen. We have 10,000 5150 here tonight. Let
Yep.
me hear you scream New Halen. I remember it word for word, man.
Live Without I was at the first show. They recorded 2 shows and took the best from each one, but I was at the first show, and I
Yeah.
said the same thing too. I was kind of hesitant. I was like, I don't know how good it's going to be. And then when that album came out, I said, yeah, I love this. It's great. It's completely different. And it's funny you mentioned AC/DC, because just those are 2 bands right off the bat I can think of when they replaced an iconic lead singer. Somebody else comes in and they're just as good or even better. Like with Bon Scott and Brian Johnson, David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar. Most bands, they get a new singer, like, yeah, it's not the same. I mean, an example right now for me would be Queensryche. I think Jeff Tate is such a great vocalist, and the other guy sounds like him, but to me, it's just not Queensryche. So, yeah.
There's so much debate about the Queensryche thing, and it's not up my alley. I'm not a Jeff's a nice guy. I've met him, and I've met some of the guys in Queensryche. We played with them. Not my thing. Queensryche's not my music, so I can't tell you. I just know that Jeff's the real deal.
Yeah.
And I know that singer is real. The other one's real fucking good. I know that.
Well, no, he definitely is. He just opened up for Judas. They're opening up for Judas Priest. They played Connecticut. I didn't go, but of course everybody films it and puts it on YouTube now. So I watched it. And I said, yeah. I mean, if you're just listening to the audio, like, wow, is that Jeff Tate back in the band? But
yeah,
it's just I think AC/DC and even Van Halen completely changed their styles for the most part, and they're just as good or better. So
I mean, Back in Black, right?
Oh my God, yeah. That was one of the first, I think. I mean, I loved listening to the old stuff with Bon Scott. Then when that came out, I said, oh my God, I love this. You Shoot Me All Night Long, Hell's Bells, just everything about it.
Yeah, incredible.
I want to get back into your music for a bit, because I want to talk about why the song that you co-wrote with Miley Cyrus was called Nothing to Lose, why that led you to not writing music for a long time.
Oh, geez. I don't know that it led me to not write music for a long time. It was such an incredible experience. We didn't co-write that with Miley. Bret wrote the song, and then I had a lot of input. I wouldn't say that I co-wrote it. It was Bret's baby. It was Bret's baby. But we're a team, and I had some influence and input, and I did engineer and produce the record. And then we had Miley come in and sing on it later. And I remember that day. That was incredible, going to Henson Studios and working with her. And it was a really neat honor, because she was a young, she was really incredibly established, but she was a young artist, and all her team around her kept making the joke about they were going to take me with them. They were going to take me from Bret, because she felt comfortable working with me as a producer in the studio. And it was so great. And the song was great. The song was great. Very emotional, because I was going through a dark time in my life and going through my divorce. And so the song comes out, and that week it's the #1 rock song added to radio. It's Bon Jovi had released a song that week, and Nickelback. This was before the "We Hate Nickelback" movement. And our song was the #1 added to radio above Bon Jovi and Nickelback. And at the time, so when I joined Bret's band, my band Evick, it was a package. All of us came. As me and Bret's friendship grew, me and my guys' friendship started to dissolve. They're still my best friends now, but there were cracks in it. There were 2 buses, and me and Bret were on one bus, and everyone else was on another bus. Me and Bret were going into the studio ourselves. I was playing all the parts, programming drums. It became, you see what I'm saying, right? Yeah. So I was on an island with Bret. not an island. I'm figuratively speaking, whatever the word is, speaking. I was on an island with Bret. I had gone through a divorce, and me and my friends weren't as close as we used to be. And the song came out. I was in a parking lot in Iowa the morning that this news came, and I went and told Bret, and Bret thought the news was great. But Bret comes from this was right. This was post streaming age where no records sell anymore. But it was also still new enough into the streaming age that there was still hope that your record may actually sell. Right. And so it was like, Bret, we're number 11 on Billboard off the debut. I gave him all this news, and he asked me how many units it sold. And back in the day, if we would have had that success on a debut, it would have been 1 million copies. And it was great. I mean, again, we were number 11 on the charts, it was number 1 out of the radio, but it wasn't a number that excited Bret the way I was excited.
Yeah.
Right. So Bret kind of just went back to bed with the news. And I couldn't call my wife. She didn't give a fuck. And the band, that was just one more great thing that happened to me that didn't happen to them. You know what I'm talking about? And so I was sitting there in this parking lot of Iowa all by myself, man. And I was having what I considered the greatest moment of my entire life musically, the achievement. I beat fucking Bon Jovi. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And or I was part of something that beat Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And it was empty, and it was lonely. And I, like a baby, I just sat there on the bus and cried, man. And it made me very disenchanted about the whole thing for quite a while.
Yeah, I definitely can imagine why. Like, you're excited. There's really nobody that you can share it with that has that same excitement for you, because I mean that is a big accomplishment, especially in these days. I want to talk about that right now, then, because how music has evolved over the years. Now with streaming, obviously you're not going to be making money when people are streaming and downloading your music. Then you have to go on tour most of the time, and that's where you get all your money from, selling the merchandise. And so when do you more, because I was talking to some other bands that I've interviewed, and they were saying that because people have, it's like an ADD nation now, where people said instead of releasing one whole album, like 3 months later, like, oh yeah, I almost forgot about them. So they like to do like one song 1 month, another song the second month.
Oh yeah.
So is that the way to do it now?
I've always believed that. Like I'm into that way. When it's done, I want the world to hear it. Like I get a little anxious and ready to push it out. So I enjoy the way that part of it works. And you can get hung up making a record. Look at what happened to Def Leppard, how many years it took to make Hysteria. And I understand the tragedy they went through, but and then everything gets grouped into that record. Like think about the Van Halen material. How do I say it? There's a lot of stuff that gets grouped into, oh, that was Van Halen 1 or that was Van Halen 2. When you just release a song, it's just a song, and it becomes timeless. It's not necessarily grouped into the era with the rest of the record. I don't know that I'm wording that right. I'm usually better at making my explanation, but the point of the fact is I enjoy just write a song and release it. I get where I'm trying to say with this now. Sometimes when you're making a record, you get consumed in making the entire record sound like that record. This record sounds like Invasion of Your Privacy. This record sounds like Dancing Undercover. Yeah. But no song starts like that. You don't write, when you actually start a song, you're just writing a song. And then that cover, that lid you try to put on it may ruin the song. The song, if you're just writing a song to write a song and you're not trying to put it in the same basket as much other songs, creativity opens up. You don't have to go, oh, this is the drum sound for this record. Or these are the guitar sounds for this record. And Bret's a lot like that. Bret's a lot, he doesn't care what the trends are. He doesn't care production wise. He doesn't care what anything sounds like. He wants to make records the way he hears in his head. And what he hears in his head every day is something different. So one day we may be writing something that sounds like a vintage Poison song. And then one day he may pull up a fucking Nirvana record, believe it or not. and go, man, remember how these drums sounded on this record? Let's do this. And then he'll pull up a Tim McGraw record and go, oh, we should do like this. And when you're releasing one song at a time, you can do that. When you're releasing a record, you're confined to the sound of that record. So I like the new way.
Yeah. You know what's funny you said that, because I heard Paul McCartney one time say this. He said every time he was going to record a new record, he would listen to the last one so he would not repeat himself. He was always trying to do something different. And I want to ask you this question because I've interviewed a lot of authors. I know a lot of authors, and they said that when they hit it big with one novel, basically all they're asked to do is write the same novel with a different title.
Yeah.
Did you ever have that kind of pushback from the record companies, record labels saying, no, this was popular, just stick with that? Or they give you the freedom to say, you know what, we trust you, write what you think is good?
You know, I've never gone through that, me personally, because I've never had my own Every Rose Has a Thorn where they'd say you got to write another one. But I know it happens. I know it happens. I know that we've been asked to write something like this or write something like that. You know what I mean? And if Brett's asked, 9 times out of 10, it's the first thing he's asked, he's going to do the exact opposite of, you know. But it's certainly, but also as a songwriter, there's a formula. You know, once you write something like Every Rose, how do you not think, well, that worked the first time, let's try it again?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do you, formula is everything. It is, you know. And then you look at Hootie and the Blowfish, right? Hootie and Blowfish came out and destroyed the world. Their impact on the music industry was as big as Nirvana. That record was giant, and it changed the face of music too. And they went a completely kind of different direction on that second record, and it did nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's interesting. Formula is important to a certain extent, but growing and creativity is important too. I don't have the right answers to that. No one can do it right, and nothing, you know, no, I'm so far down the road now, I don't know what the actual question you asked was, but yeah, no one ever put that kind of pressure on me, so to speak.
Yeah. But you've seen it happen.
Yeah, I've seen it happen.
Yeah, well, just an example of that would be John Mellencamp. He said he hated the name Johnny Cougar, but he says, I'm 20 years old. They're offering me a deal. They hated my name. So, of course, I'm going to sign it. And that's when he finally, John Cougar Mellencamp, then finally John Mellencamp. And it was funny. I was listening to an interview with Clive Davis not that long ago. And he was saying one of his biggest regrets was he turned down John Mellencamp because he thought he sounded too much like Bruce Springsteen. And he goes, he was at some party, and he goes, man, I want to apologize. He goes, no, you actually did me a favor. He goes, that made me better. I wanted to become even better than what I was. So it's funny, like, what, and I think another thing too is people love familiarity. They hate when somebody changes. So I don't think you could ever have a band that evolved. I'm going to use the Beatles again as an example, from the Love Me Do days to Sgt. Pepper's. A band like that now would be like, oh, you know what? Let's find 4 other guys that look, sound, and act just like them. Instead of, they won't give them a chance to evolve over years.
Well, it's funny you say, what you just said is something I've been saying for years and years and years and years. Why that there's no Beatles, and there's no Zeppelin, and there's no Van Halen, and there's no Kiss anymore, is we grew with those bands. Van Halen 1's a terrible record. Great playing. Record doesn't sound great. And they were kids. And Van Halen 2 was the next step.
Mm-hmm.
And Fair Warning was the next step, or Women and Children First. And with every record, you grew a little more with the band. Now today, you get the finished, the best polished product that's ever going to be right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing you don't grow with it. Everything is as great as it's going to be. You look as great as you can be, and you sound as great as you can be, and the production is super, super polished. Everyone can make a record. I make records, and me and Bret have recorded records on his fucking airplane. So it's, it's not, you don't need that giant budget anymore. You don't need, it's, to appear as a star is accessible. So there's no growth. And I believe growth is, I believe growth is important. I think the reason I love Kiss so much is because, I was there listening to Kiss, and they were terrible. They were the worst band in the world. Everyone knows it. And they grew, and they got bigger and larger, and every step of the way, you felt like you were going with them. And that's what a fan used to feel like. That doesn't happen. There's not a band that comes out today that you go, oh, I wonder if they'll get better on their second record. They're just what they are already.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know. Unfortunately, now with the way the record company, how what they do is they'll have like pre-packaged bands where they'll just get four people that look alike, sound alike, act like. And I want your opinion on this, though. What do you think of these reality shows where people want to become instant stars, like The Voice and American Idol? To me, I don't think that they can appreciate the struggle, traveling in a van, going on tour, this and that. They just want to go on stage a couple weeks, then go on a world tour, and they think that like they're rock stars. To me, it's good for some people, but for me, I just don't think I think it's more harmful to the people, the musicians and the artists, than it would be good for them.
Well, a few have made it work. Daughtry
Yeah,
made it work.
Daughtry, Kelly Clarkson made it work.
Well, I don't know that
Carrie
Kelly.
Underwood.
I don't know that Kelly hit the road and worked like a rock star. Daughtry hit the road,
Okay.
and he went out there and he worked it. And Daughtry is the closest thing we have to that old school Van Halen of this modern era, where we've been able to watch his career grow and blossom. You know what I mean? Although those records did sound good right from the bat. I think he had Chad Kroeger producing that stuff from Nickelback, I think. But uh I don't know that it hurts the artists that win that stuff.
Yeah.
I think what it hurts is the artist aspiring to be like that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I was more thinking of. Was like they're
If you
not
win,
they don't go through the suffering years for the growth. They just think that they're a star immediately, and it's just
yeah.
they're
I
not ready
think
for it.
I think if you win that, you won it. So good for you.
Yeah.
But it gives a lot of false hope to a lot of people sitting around home that think that they're going to just go and sing on that TV show and it happened for them. So I think the damage is more about the people watching thinking they can be like Kelly Clarkson than it is to them, you know. But it is a rude awakening to, I guess you're right. It's a rude awakening to a lot of them that think that their 15 minutes on TV is going to lead to a Led Zeppelin style career, and it just doesn't.
Yeah. Let's go back to Pete Evick, the early years. And we mentioned this band several times. I want to talk about how your mother's love of Elvis and your love of Kiss helped jumpstart your love of music.
Yeah, my mom and Elvis, man. She loved him. She used to see him before he was famous, which is a neat story in itself. You know what I mean? She knew all of him and you know, her that story, she's passed away, but I told too much of that story in the past interviews and I shouldn't have done it. But my mom loved Elvis, put a guitar in my hand, and I just didn't give a shit. I didn't give a shit. And then I saw Kiss on TV in 1978, and all of a sudden I went, oh, I got a guitar in my closet. I got one of those, and they were superheroes. And that that my mom surrounded me by music, and I understood what I understand now what she wanted from me, but I didn't get it at first. And then when I saw Kiss, I went, oh, I can do what my mom wants me to do, but I can do it like this. I can breathe fire, you know. And so the cocktail of the two set me on my path.
Yep. Well, that's what I love about Kiss. As you mentioned, like I mean, they're not the best musicians in the world, but they know the importance of a great stage show. They're very theatrical, and they're just a lot of fun too. So to me,
Yeah.
I want your opinion on this too, because for me, I always tell people, I said there's a difference between best musician and best entertainer. And I'm going to give
Oh,
you two. I'm going to give you two examples for me, and I have very eclectic taste, so you might laugh at the second one. But two of my favorite entertainers are one, Paul McCartney. I just think that I just saw him at Fenway Park in the last summer, right before his 80th birthday, 2 days before. He's joking around. He's dancing as much as he can. He had stories for everything. He did 35 songs over 3 hours long, puts on a fun show. And the other guy, other end of the spectrum, puts on a great show. Not the best musician, but Barry Manilow.
I've never seen Barry.
He puts on or he did at the time. I know he's people have seen him lately, but I know he's had hip surgery and he's getting older. But he used to put on such a fun show. He had, he wrote a lot of commercials before that, and he just has fun with the audience. And I think that some people, I'm going from personal experiences. Some people think that being the best musician is the most important thing. A lot of people are just sitting there watching, like, I'm bored. You can be the best musician. You got to put on a show, get the audience involved. And that's why I brought that up. So for you, do you have a favorite entertainer, favorite musician?
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions about this.
Okay.
Because I'm a musician, uh, and Brett's an entertainer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not to say Brett's not a musician, he'd blow your fucking mind if you knew what he really knew,
Yeah.
right? But he also knew that what he wanted to be was an entertainer, right? Uh, I love being a musician, but I'm a musician because I want to be a musician.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to entertain. You know, CC DeVille made a whole lot more fucking money than Yngwie Malmsteen.
Exactly. It's funny you said that. I was going to bring him up because I've seen Ingve and he is an awesome guitar player. But I saw him open up for Twisted Sister years ago, and I said, "All right, we know you're a great guitar player. Just play a song."
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that he is the one person I was thinking of when you said when I was making this comment. That's funny. But yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree. And yeah, CC
Yeah.
DeVille. I mean, I
And let me,
love Poison songs. They're a lot of fun on stage, and
but
he
let
just
me tell you this, man, and
yeah.
I've known this for a long time. CC is every bit the musician Malmsteen is, and he can
Ah,
play that Malmsteen stuff. He sits in the backstage all day long in his dressing room, and he loves the guitar more than anyone I've ever seen. CC plays that guitar from the moment he wakes up to the minute he goes to bed. It's similar to the stories you hear about Edward Van Halen. Edward would take the thing into the bathroom. I've never seen CC take it to the bathroom, but he loves it.
yeah,
But CC's the hybrid. He's the entertainer too, right?
yeah,
And I believe that I got that from CC and Edward Van Halen. Edward knew how to entertain, you know. So there is a way to be a hybrid, but it are two completely different things. And CC will never show you the musician he is. You're always just going to see the entertainer. And Edward, for all we know, and everything we saw, there was stuff. He was still way better than we ever knew. Like,
mhm,
you know, I'm an entertainer guy. I will pick fucking Kiss over Dream Theater every fucking day of the week. I hate to
yeah,
say it, and those
yeah.
guys are great.
They are.
You know what I mean? But I am a guitar player, and I like to play that stuff. When I'm sitting at home, I love to play my Malmsteen licks, and I love to play all that stuff. But I don't have any use for it on the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't feel the need to prove yourself. Everybody knows you're good and you don't have to go up on stage. Like to me, sometimes I think he wanted to prove how great he really is. I mean, maybe he's doing it for a different reason, but that's the impression I got. It's like, okay, we know
yeah.
you were 19 years old and Alcatraz came out and just, you're a genius, but it's just play some songs. So
But
another
then,
one that's what was that?
well, then you have the to me the most unique hybrid of them all is Steve Vai.
Yes. And that's why when you mentioned Eat 'em and Smile, I was thinking the same thing about Roth. They said he's got Billy Sheehan, he's got Greg Bissonette, he's got Steve Vai. That's the ultimate band. And then when Van Halen came out, it was the same. It was I thought for sure Roth. Oh, he got the upper hand on this one
Yeah, yeah.
because of like all those musicians that he played with.
Vi puts on, even his instrumental solo guitar tours, puts on a show, man.
Mhm.
And he's animated. It's in his soul. It's it, he's incredible. But he gives you a show, and and now that Edwards passed, I can say without argument, he's the greatest living guitar player. If you ask me, Steve Vai. You know, uh, I'm such of the Van Halen school, and I carry that flag till I die. He changed the world. What he did is most incredible stuff in the world. But there were moments where I would almost say I liked Vi better than Edward.
Mhm.
You know. But then there's moments where I'm like, what the fuck is Steve playing? Like sometimes it's so far out of whack I can't put my head around it. You know what I mean? But Vi's an incredible hybrid of musician and entertainment.
Yeah. And he was, I think, if I had the information correct, the youngest guitar player, I think 19 years old for Frank Zappa.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just he has such. And you know what I love more recently? Did you ever hear of a band called the Two Cellos?
Yeah, yeah. Steve loves them.
I was just gonna say he's in a video. They do a song with them, and Highway to Hell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's how I found out about it. I was watching something on Steve Vai, and he was in that video. I said, these guys are awesome. I ended up seeing them 3 times just through
Yeah,
watching Steve Vai. Yeah, it's great. The great combination of the cellos with the metal, and
yeah.
they're another ones who are great entertainers. No, I want to bring up, since we're on the subject, I want to bring up one more. I think it's a great hybrid because I think Ronnie James Dio was an awesome singer, but he also knew the importance of putting on a great stage show with the dragons and all the crystal balls. He just loved the whole fantasy.
Who was that?
Ronnie James Dio.
Oh, geez. I mean, he doesn't even count. That's
Yeah,
legendary stuff, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
he was an island too on himself. And confident and knew uh he knew what he was doing. That's all I was never a super big fan of all that kind of Dungeons and Dragons-y stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But fuck, he was cool. He was the leader of it and he started it and he created it and he was cool. And to know what he was before that,
Mm-hmm.
you see all this picture. What was he, a band called the Elves or something like that, or
Yeah, Elf.
or what? And how he evolved that with his vision was incredible to me. And what a voice! That's also not just talent. That's a gift. The voice.
Yes. Well, it's funny. They just came out with the first authorized documentary. It was authorized by Wendy and the estate, and they were talking about that. Like the reason he quit Rainbow is because they were doing these more obscure songs, and then they were only popular over in England. And then Richie Blackmore always wanted to hit, so then he wrote Street of Dreams. And Ronnie's like, "Yeah, I'm out of here. I can't sing this stuff." And then that's when Black Sabbath picked him up. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's like you said, he's another one that's way up in the spectrum, and it's like, but an awesome voice, but he also knew the importance of putting on a great stage show. So there's so many we could talk about.
But yeah, so I'm sorry, because now that you say him, I have to say
Go ahead.
Bruce Dickinson.
Yes. You know what's funny? I love the Paul Dan years. I loved Running Free and all that stuff, Prowler, Phantom of the Opera. But yeah, when Number of the Beast came out, I said, "Oh my God, this is great!" And then Peace of Mind was one of my all-time favorite metal albums for the longest time. It's just I love that I love that era of Maiden, which I know he left for a while. Now he's back, but he's another great one. Like the Live After Death is one of my favorite VHS tapes that I had.
One of the most important interviews of my entire life was watching Bruce Dickinson, and Bruce said they were talking about him being this front man, and he said, "I played to the last person in the back seat of the arena, not the person in the front row," and that stuck with me. That's a lesson you need to know if you're going to be in this business.
Yes, it's funny because I saw him. What's his solo? Tattoo Millionaire, I think it's called.
Yeah,
I saw him on that tour. He played. I don't know if you've ever played Toad's Place in New Haven.
I know it. I do know it. Yeah.
So I saw him there, and it was the first time in this small club. And then I was walking to my car, and I walked past this little small guy, and I didn't realize if I walked right by him, it was Bruce. I had a chance to talk to him for a little bit. Such a cool guy.
But it's funny you say small guy because he's 10 foot tall on the stage.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. That's why I almost didn't recognize him, because I said, "Oh, I didn't realize he was so short." But he had a chance to talk to him for a good 5 minutes or so. He seemed like he was a little overwhelmed because he's probably more used to the arenas and everything.
Yeah.
People, like, believe it or not, even with that music, people were trying to mosh and stage dive to it. And I think he was like, okay.
Right.
He's definitely into it. That's why I loved. Let me get your opinion on this. I know everybody loves playing in front of millions of people at festivals, but what do you prefer, playing small, intimate settings or more of the stadiums?
That's like asking me, what do I prefer, pizza or Mexican? You love them both. While Bret was out with the Poison this summer, I went back to my roots. I hadn't done this in a long, long time, and I just played acoustic shows in small bars. And there were nights I walked away and go, "Man, I just wish I could do this the rest of my life. I'm enjoying this and the intimacy and the remembering what it felt like, wondering what it would be like to get out of those places."
Mm-hmm.
But now I know what it's like to get out of those places. So it's not terrible anymore. Now it's great. You know what I mean? And I love playing for the smaller crowds. But what are you going to fucking do? You play in front of 50,000 people. No one's going to tell you that's not fucking cool.
Oh, yeah.
No one's going to tell you that's not cool. What I will tell you is that it's harder and scarier to play in front of 20 people than it is 20,000.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely can understand that. I've never played in front of 20,000 people, but sometimes when I'm doing comedy with a bigger crowd, sometimes it's easier than when you have like
You
you
have
said,
4
10,
eyes
50
watching
people.
you, and you
Yeah.
got 4 people watching you, and you feel like you can feel their every move. When there's too little people and you can take note of everyone around you, that becomes a little more scary because you feel like you have to directly speak to each one of them. But when you got crowds of 10, 20, 30,000 people, they become symbionts of their own, and they're like a hive unit, and you feel that energy, and it's a different game.
Yeah, yeah. Have you played with Autograph recently?
I've not played with them, but I've seen them recently.
Okay, the reason I'm asking because I had Jimmy Bell on the show. He's the new guitar player. Well, he's been the guitar player for a little while, but we were talking about all the same things because he's toured with a lot of the same musicians. And you mentioned Slaughter. He said that people would be so surprised of how great of a guitar player he actually is.
Oh,
Much like
Blando or Mark?
Mark.
Mark's
That's what,
incredible player,
yeah,
right?
that's what he was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but you sacrifice that at some point. Interestingly enough, in my career, I started off solely a guitar player. And I
Hmm.
got my first record deal with my band called Some Odd Reason in the late 90s. And we were really successful to a certain level. We were I, I can say with 100% certainty, we were on the fringe of a real breaking it. It was right in that Matchbox 20 Goo Goo Dolls era, and all the stars were lined, and we were touring and playing, and I was a guitar player. So there's this whole fan base from that era that knows me as a guitar player.
Hmm.
And then when that fell apart, I started Evick. And as Evick, I became the singer. And then there's 10 years of people that see me as a singer that
Hmm.
have no idea that I'm this accomplished guitar player. And then I joined Bret's band as a guitar player, going back to the 80s stuff and really fucking shredding and playing all that stuff. And all these people that have only known me as a singer see that. Because when I first joined Bret's band, they're like, "What do you mean you're going to play guitar? You're a singer," you know? And so my point of that is, and then the Bret people go back and discover my band and find out I'm a singer. Uh, it's funny what people don't take into consideration. Don Dokken is incredible guitar player,
Hmm.
right? Mark's an incredible guitar player. All of us, I don't think any of us start wanting to be a singer. There's something about a singer that seems out of reach. Like when you're a kid, when you're 12, 13 years old, and you want to be a rock star, the singer almost seems like he's from outer space. Like it's unachievable. You don't hear a lot about taking vocal lessons, or you don't hear about your buddy across the street plays guitar. You only sing if you're in the band.
Hmm.
You can play guitar and not be in a band. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
You know, eh, if you sing, you're already in a band. So a lot of guitar players like myself become frustrated with trying to find a singer, so you become the singer.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that that's what Mark did. I'm sure it's what Mark did. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, but Mark's incredibly talented dude, and so is Dana. I mean, they're a great bunch of guys.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he said too. He said the same thing. And it's funny because speaking of singing, what did Eddie Trunk say to you the first time he saw you singing?
Not the first time.
Okay, that's the first time.
Yeah. It's funny. There's been a few moments in the last few years. Uh, I was doing a benefit. Um, I was doing a benefit with me and Eric Brittingham from Cinderella. We had a side band, and Eddie was the host at this benefit. And we did some covers. We did some Skid Row songs, some AC/DC songs, some Van Halen, some Poison, and stuff like that. And he walked up and he's like, "Oh man." It wasn't that he said I had a great voice. It was that he said, "Man, you're such a great front man."
Hmm.
And I laughed. What a great compliment, because Eddie tells you how it is.
Oh yeah, exactly.
He tells you the truth. It was a great compliment, and I was honored. Like I wanted to go tell the whole world Eddie said this, but also in my brain I went, well, if I wasn't a great front man, something went wrong because I spent fucking 20 years 10 feet from the greatest frontman in the world. If I didn't take something from that, then I'm a fucking idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was great. But then a couple weeks ago, uh, or maybe a couple months ago, we were doing a show that Eddie was at, and Brett's plane had to get diverted, and it was a private party, and the private party uh, decided that the music must go on. So I had to sing the first hour. I had to front the band instead of Brett, and Eddie was there. And that was the night that Eddie went on the air the next morning and talked about seeing it and talking about how strong my voice was and how great it was and everything like that, which was very, it means a lot to me because, like I said, Eddie doesn't need any friends and he doesn't need to kiss anyone's ass. And he's been very kind and supportive of me. Eddie's a wonderful human being and a wonderful friend, but it's neat to hear him say those things.
Yeah, well, no, I only met him once, and I listened to a lot of his shows, listened to his interviews, and like you said, I know he's very honest. If even he goes,
Yeah.
you know, I've known him for years, but I just really don't like this, or he'll tell you exactly how he feels. He never sugarcoats it for the even if
Never.
he's friends with him for years, and I prefer that too. Like if somebody was coming to me and it's like, oh, I hate yes people, you know.
Yeah.
So because then when they actually do say something, you're like, is he bullshitting me again? I don't really know. So yeah, the fact they keep from him definitely. And I haven't seen you in concert. I'm hoping you're going to be coming around the area sometime soon in Connecticut. I don't know if you're going to be
In
playing.
December, I'm doing an acoustic show in Connecticut.
Oh, where's it going to be?
Me and Chad from Fester Pussycat's drummer,
Yep.
uh, he'll be playing percussion with me. And if you give me a second, I can look at where it's at
Yeah, go ahead.
and put my glasses on for everyone to see that that's where I'm at in my life right now.
Well, I've been using these readers for the last year and a half myself. So
Give me 1 second.
yeah, no problem.
Um, come on. It is December 16th. I'm at Four Seasons by the Lake at Stafford Springs, Connecticut.
All right. Yeah, that's not too far from here.
And then
So-
Saturday, December 17th, I'm at Rascals in Worcester, Massachusetts.
all right. That's that's only about an hour, what, maybe like an hour and 10 minutes away. So
So
you will
see
definitely
that.
see me at one of those shows. Yeah, I
That
definitely
would
want
be
to check
great.
it out. Well, we talked about this before, the difference between small shows and big shows. I want to talk about the first time Brett asked you to play with him. It was a small radio show.
Jesus Christ, man. It still haunts me to this day.
I love
His
it.
version and my version is different. We didn't rehearse, man. I know you've heard the story. We didn't rehearse. And it was 15,000 people.
A
Small
radio show.
Small radio show to me is 100 people in a parking lot or whatever. It was just different. And you know what? Fuck me for not asking the right questions, to be honest with you. I was so excited. I just said yes. And where do you want me to be? You know, so uh yeah, that was crazy, man. And we weren't good. The best part of that moment though was the best part of that experience was a couple days later when Brett called and he said, "How do you think that went?" And I said, "Oh, it was fucking terrible." And he said, "Well, good." He goes, "The problem would have been if you thought it was good." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then we were right on the same page. And then it went on from there. What a weird day, man. You bring that up, and I just remember just for the first time in my life walking out onto a stage like that. And just an hour before that, I thought I was going to just be in some radio station. You know, it was
That's
crazy.
funny. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's such a great guy that he said, "All right, let's give it another try. Let's give you another chance." Because were you opening up for him at the time? Your
Not
band
at-
opening up?
No, but we had for 2 years
Okay.
before that, we'd been his opening band a lot of times, which is why he knew.
Okay.
He'd seen what we really could do.
Yeah.
You know, and he kind of understood too. He's like, maybe I didn't prep you. We didn't rehearse. He kind of ate half the fault too. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then, and then he said, he goes, "I got another gig in 2 weeks." He goes, "This time, let me be clear. It's 33,000 people sold out opening for Leonard Skinner Memorial Day weekend." He laid the specifics down on me. And then he said, "Let's try it one more time. You just come down and be yourself."
Yeah.
And then I just did my thing that day. And he high-fived me at the end of Nothing But a Good Time, and here we are 20 years later.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
I want to talk about how Dana Strum helped you when you first joined Bret Michaels Band.
Yeah. Yeah. Dana, there's nobody smarter than Dana in the rock and roll business. And I was hired as just to be Bret's guitar player, but then some things happened and a couple crew member changes happened. And somebody left the tour on the spot, leaving the position of tour manager completely wide open. And if you know, Dana takes care of all these things for Vince and is in the band. And at the time, he was basically the only dude that did that. And Dana didn't know me from Adam. And I called him and I said, Dana, the tour manager's left the tour. And for some reason, I'm the guy now. I got to go do all these things. How do I keep Bret happy? What can I do? And Dana just spent hours, days taking my phone calls. Whatever I asked, he would answer. He would help me. He would explain to me how to do it, and just led me on the path. Man, he helped me figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's good. It's good to have friends like that. They've already been through it, and they can say, "All right, this is
yeah,
what you do," and so that probably ease some of the pressure for you, or just let you calm down. It's like, "All right, I got this."
yeah.
Like you said, 20 years later, you're still kicking ass. So,
We'll see.
yeah.
I hope I am. Some days it doesn't feel like it. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes 20 years feels like a day, and sometimes 20 years feel like 100. You know, the
Yeah.
road and the music life is an interesting thing. It is a strange hybrid. It keeps you young and makes you old at the same time, man. It beats you up and keeps you enthusiastic. It is a nonstop yin and yang on every level, mentally, physically, emotionally. Music business is a great, what do you call it? A great balancer, I guess. It balances you out. It keeps you grounded, but also puts your head in this. It's a crazy ride.
But yeah, I can imagine. So, how many dates do you do per year now? I mean, we're talking like post-COVID now. So, since you're back, I'm guessing things are pretty much back to normal all over the
Yeah,
place.
we're back to three nights a week, almost every night, all the way up to Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Um, so what do you say? I don't. I mean, we've done 250 dates a year. This year may end up with about 100 or so, but next year is going to be big. We're out because there's no Poison tour next year. So
Uh,
yeah, the Poison tour certainly got in the way of us,
yeah.
but it also helped. I mean, I crack up because uh, you know, I have to wonder how Nikki Sixx feels because in the opening of Nikki's new book, he talks about how he didn't even want Poison to be on that tour. It's like in the first paragraph of his new book, and you read the headlines, man.
Yeah.
They won the tour. They were
Yeah.
they were the talk of it every night, every single night. They were, and so that was good for Poison because everyone loves Poison. They weren't the fans' critic or they weren't the critics' favorite in the early days, but as time went on, just longevity and the fact that they're still there, all four original members, gave them some cred. But this year they went out and they solidified themselves on a whole different level. And the
Yeah.
interesting thing is they didn't do anything different. They didn't even rehearse. Those guys rehearsed for like 2 days. You know what I mean? Even Bret made the comment because what are we doing so different? And
Yeah.
it's like fine wine, man. They've aged better than everyone else.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I didn't see that tour. I've seen again clips of it, and I've seen Motley Crue. I've seen Poison. I've seen Joan Jett. Poison, to me, the clips I saw were definitely the best. They sounded great. They were having fun on stage. The audience was into it.
And no tracks, that real live music.
Yes.
You
Yep.
know,
That's what, and somebody told me too, which I got mad. They were defending Vince Neil. I don't know how true this is. They were saying that Vince Neil was using a teleprompter on stage. And
so
I said,
what?
no,
So
I know.
what?
No, I'm just saying that like people. No, I agree with you on that for one, but I also think that like people like Paul McCartney, who was almost 80 years old, didn't need that. But it's just I don't know.
I think McCartney has a teleprompter, does he not?
If he does, I didn't see him using it. But yeah.
Axl's been using a teleprompter from back on the Use Your Illusion tour.
Oh, really? Okay.
Steven Tyler's been using a teleprompters from um,
Yeah.
uh, whatever record had that "What It Takes" song. There goes my old girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know what to say about that. Vince using a teleprompter and still didn't sing afterwards.
Yeah. I know.
Vince is my friend, and I'm pro Vince. Nikki's a douche, and if I found out the day he choked and died, I wouldn't give a fuck. I got to be honest with you. But Vince is my friend, and I love the guy.
Yeah.
And and but it's weird that they basically got reviews from Sucking, and that they're like the worst karaoke band in the world because they were playing their own tracks and still got reviewed for sucking. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like it's I
That
can't
is,
understand why they're going back out because I can't find a single good review about the band. Not
I
just
haven't, no, I
not
haven't seen
and
any.
whole thing, everything they suck. They suck, they suck, they suck. And somehow they're going back out. I don't. No fan enjoyed it. Every fan I have not met one person that walked away thinking Motley Crue was. There's a million of the fans that were mad that they came back in the first place because they spent all this money to see them what they thought was going to be the last time.
Oh yeah.
So there's that bunch of people that are mad, and now there's this whole bunch of people that thought it was the worst thing they'd ever seen. So how are they going to go back out? I don't. Something's fucked up about it, man. That's all I know.
No, no.
I keep making the joke that Nicky's the one that brought on COVID. His deal with the devil, and he tore up his little contract that he was never going to play together, and that set forth the end of the world, if you ask me.
That's funny. Well, I know they each had contracts saying they could never play together, this and that. And I think what happened was that movie The Dirt came out and it was such a big hit that somebody said, "Hey, you should go on tour." I mean, I'm
Yeah,
guessing that's probably what happened. But the funny thing about that tour, I just want to bring this up, was I heard an interview where I guess they originally asked Dave Lee Roth to be a part of it, and he said, "I'm not going to be opening up for for people that I influenced."
yeah. Right. Why
So
would they even? Yeah, that wouldn't have fit anyway. But
yeah. But I mean, look, the most important thing is that Brett and the guys are having a great time playing, and the people love them. So yeah, and with all the other drama with the other band, who really cares?
right
Yeah.
now, I will say Def Leppard was great every night.
Okay. That I didn't see really too many clips. I didn't really. I saw like one or two clips from Joan. She didn't sound too bad either. The
No,
ones
she was
I saw.
great, but she was also playing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But but Def Leppard is just the one flaw Leopard made was they'd open the set with like 3 or 4 of the brand new songs,
Hmm.
and it would. I think the crowd was taken aback by that a little bit because this tour was about nostalgia. It was about reliving that those days. You know what I mean? But no
Yeah.
one really said anything. No one said anything bad about Def Leppard. It was just everyone just the energy Poison brought. It won. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I saw them. I want to say 2005, 2006, and they were excellent in concert. And I'm glad to hear that they're still doing well. How much longer is that tour going on for? That stadium tour, is it?
No one knows. Live Nation will
Oh,
take it till the last dollars. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's going international now. They're taking it into the other countries. So
Okay. So while Poison's doing their thing, do you take Evick out? I know you do some acoustic shows, but do you go out with the band and do some tours on your own, or do some
not a
shows on
lot.
your own?
My guys have settled into the real world. You know what I mean? I can't
Okay.
I can't take them out on the road. We do local shows, but we do a couple local shows a year, and it becomes huge events. Become sellout shows, and it feels good. So we just keep it at that instead of
Yeah.
getting. If we went back to the grind and started playing 3 or 4 nights a week, eventually it would be just like every other local band, and 25, 30 people show up. We make what we do a special event.
Yeah. No, I think that's better. Like, have one huge show instead of like 15
Yeah.
to 20 smaller shows. So
Yeah.
good marketing. I like that. Good. I want to talk about your writing process. So, what is your writing process? Do you write the lyrics first? Like, say, I guess for your band, write the lyrics first, then the music, or do you write the music and then come up with some lyrics?
It's all different. I don't have excuse me for yawning. I don't have a specific process at all. Um, I drive a lot, and sometimes a lyric will come into mind. And some days I wake up and I go, "Oh, I want to write a cool guitar riff." It's no rhyme or reason what happens.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, the songs that end up being heard from people, though, heard by people, are the ones that I start lyrically
Okay.
because to me, I'm still all the cool guitar in the world doesn't matter if you don't have a good story in your song.
Hmm. Now, when you're writing with Brett, do you show Brett a guitar lick and say, like, do you collaborate a lot?
Most everything with Brett starts with a drum beat.
Okay.
Brett will think of a song title, and then he'll actually beatbox a beat. And like I actually have demos. I wish I could play of a song that he sang into the microphone every single part. He did the drums, the bass, the guitar, and then the vocal to get this demo himself out of his head. But most of the time it starts with a beat, and he'll say, I want to do something like this,
Hmm.
or let's think of something feels in the vein of this. And and then we just it's very, very chaotic process working in Brett's head. He goes 100 miles an hour, and you just got to hope you can fucking follow it. You basically, in your studio at Brett, you're just catching what's falling and seeing if you can put it together and give him what he's hearing in his head.
Now, do you guys all live around the same area? And the reason I'm asking this is because there's a Connecticut band, Fate's Warning. I'm not sure if you ever heard of them or know who they are. All right, so I was watching an interview with them, and they were saying that they all live all over the place. So what they'll do is Jim Patheos will write something, give it to Ray. Ray will also go back with Jim, and then they'll give it to the bass player. So they really never ever collaborate together because they're all in different states. Do you have a similar situation, or do you all in the
No,
around the same area?
I'm on the East Coast and Brett's on the West Coast.
Okay.
And we just get together. He'll have a song idea and he'll be like, he has his own plane, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. So literally, if he has an idea in the morning, he can be here in a few hours on the East Coast, and we work in the studio, or we work in his studio, or we work on the bus, just wherever.
Yeah, that's great. Like Bruce Dickinson, he flies the plane.
Yeah.
I
Brett's
love
not
that.
a pilot, and I
Yeah.
don't know if I'd fly a plane Brett was piloting, but yeah.
That's funny. So how often do you, when the tours are over and you both have some downtime, how often does the band get together?
Uh, the band, not a lot, but me and him are always together. We're always working on, if it's not music, we're working on something else. I was with him last week. We're up in New York because he was filming Impractical Jokers. He's going to be on that
Oh,
show, and I went with him and hung out. We're together a lot.
oh, very cool. All right. So besides Kiss, we know that you love Kiss growing up. Who are some of your biggest influences growing up, and who are some of your current favorites?
Well, there's Kiss, Van Halen, Bon Jovi,
Mhm.
Poison, and Warrant. Those are my
Yeah.
and Quiet Riot. I gotta say Quiet Riot. And I know, I loved Quiet Riot, and I always forget to leave those guys out. But I leave and Ozzy was a big influence. But the influence of my music is Kiss, Van Halen, Poison, Bon Jovi, and Warrant. But
That's a good list.
but that's of hair metal stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I am a Bryan Adams fanatic,
Mhm.
and I'm a Mellencamp fanatic.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
like I like those pop storyteller songs, which is
Yeah.
why I like Bon Jovi so much. Bon Jovi was like Mellencamp and Springsteen and Bryan Adams with cooler guitars. So I like all that stuff. What do I like now? Like, you mean modern bands?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like who do you listen to now? Someone not going back to the bands that we grew up with listening to, but some of the newer bands.
It's funny. Sometimes I say newer bands, and they're older.
Yeah.
I was when Bush came out, I was a giant Bush fan, but that stuff's 25 years old now.
Hmm.
I loved Lit. I love Butch Walker. Um, I love all the country stuff. I mean, I'm from Virginia, so I've always been rooted in the country music stuff. E- I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a big guy anymore on bands. I just like songs.
Hmm.
Whatever, whoever has a good song. I like pop hooks. I like cherry pie. I like nothing but a good time. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And so I love Ed Sheeran. I think that guy's insane great. Um, but it would probably bother you to hear, but I got to say, I don't go looking for anything new.
No, well, it's funny you said that because I'm very similar. People always say it to me, like, you don't know how much you're missing out. And I'm like, I love the old stuff. And there was a certain point where I just said, I'm sure there's some great bands that I'm missing out on, but there was a point where I just said, everything sounds the same. I mean, this maybe it's more of the popular stuff. People that are more underground, maybe there's different, but it's just, yeah, I'm the same way. I really don't go searching for newer bands. I like what I like, and I'm all over the place. I can go from King Diamond to the Carpenters to Poison in a matter of 3 songs.
Yeah,
To Mozart after that. I mean, so I have very, very eclectic taste. But For new, I'm exactly the same. So yeah,
You
it's
get it.
definitely not going to hurt me because I have the same mentality as you.
Right. There you go.
But I want to talk about you had the honor of playing for the troops. What was that like?
No, it was great. My father was military. There's this little part of me that always kind of felt like I was a idiot for not serving my country, and I think Brett feels a little bit that way too. And we were able to go to Iraq and play. We played in Saddam's palace after it had been overthrown. We played in his opera house with the American flag flying behind us. It was powerful.
Wow.
Um, and we still meet these troops today, and they go, "Oh, we saw you in Iraq," and that was the greatest thing in the world. To know that we made their day a little bit better is probably the greatest reward I've ever had in my entire music business.
Yeah. And didn't you go into areas that weren't
Yeah.
the most popular areas to go into?
Brett said if we're gonna go, we're gonna go. And we played some of these places that there were no lights. We're playing in the dark. And I remember we were playing, we got like through a song and a half, and all of a sudden the air raid sirens went off and we had to all run into bunkers, turn the lights down and hide. Uh it it was surreal experience, but there was never a frightening moment. There was one moment I have this picture where we're in a bunker and we're getting attacked, and I'm sitting there with my guitar. I look at this picture sometimes. I got my eyes closed, and I'm waiting. I'm waiting to die, man. I in my brain, I've decided that this is it. This is going to happen because it's an air raid, and they put us down there. So you think that's happening, and I'm at peace with it for some reason. But the one thing I keep thinking about is we took a pro photographer that did some work from Rolling Stone with us, and uh, we're all in this bunker taking cover, thinking we're going to die, and he's getting the shot. He's taking the photos, and and I just thought, I mean, that's the passion of a photographer. They'll die for
Yeah.
that shot. You know what I mean? That was interesting. Yeah.
Well, it must have been really tough for you with your crippling fear from the past with the bombs.
So interestingly enough, my fear is not of conventional war. The fear is nuclear annihilation.
Okay.
The idea that that bomb drops and everything just melts.
Yeah.
Vaporization. You know what I mean? For some reason, I don't see the standard warfare isn't. Don't get me wrong; it's horrifying,
Mhm.
but it's not what the scars are for me.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's definitely understandable because maybe not as bad, but I'm afraid of that as well.
Yeah,
It's not as crippling, but yeah, I do have a fear of that, and don't want that to happen. So how many countries have you toured?
I don't have the answer to that.
Okay,
I
so
know
you've been
this.
all over the world then.
I know this. I've been all over the world. And I haven't been to fucking Hawaii.
Well, I think you know what you gotta next time Brett's free. He's like, Brett, come on, let's take your plane. Let's go to Hawaii for the weekend. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know why I've never ended up there, but I've been all over. I mean, Australia and I start naming places, and I'll name cities instead of countries, and countries instead of
Yeah, yeah.
towns. So I don't. I'm not going to make myself look stupid, but I've been all over.
Yeah. What's funny is my brother was a fighter pilot and I was an airline pilot. He was a fighter pilot in the Navy, and he said one of the nicest countries he's ever visited was Australia. He loved that place. He said he would love to have lived there. He just
I,
loved that area.
I loved it. It was,
Yeah.
but at the same time, that flight was so long. I often tell Brett that he'll have to get another guitar player if he ever goes back there. The flight was unbearable to Australia, but once you're there, it's it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Australia is awesome without a doubt.
So my longest flight was to I went to Romania on a
Oh yeah.
Dracula tour, Transylvania. I loved it because
All right.
I love history and I love horror movies. So it was a perfect blend of
Sure,
Vlad the
sure.
Impaler and Dracula, and it was just such a great place. And over there's a lot of gypsies. I mean, it's a very poor country, but the people were so nice. I'll give you an example because I had this money and I really had no idea what it was. I'm buying things and they're chasing me down the road. Sir, you gave me too much money. I said, imagine if this was America.
Yeah.
Thank you, dumb
Yeah.
tourist.
Or
Okay,
Mexico.
yeah.
That wasn't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen in the United States or
No.
Mexico.
Keep running. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Yeah, right, right. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, that was probably my all-time favorite vacation. I had such a fun time in that, and it was a guided tour, and we spent Halloween night in Dracula's castle.
Did you really?
Yep.
I didn't know that was a thing. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
Well,
a
if you're into all that, happy Halloween.
Oh,
Today.
thank you. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because everybody's been doing the same things. They know this is like my favorite holiday, my favorite time of the year.
Yeah,
I
right
just,
on.
I have many different interests, but I grew up watching all the old horror movies and things like that. I still, I'll give you an example. Like, right, as I mentioned before, I'm 54. So my father used to wake my brothers and I up and say, come on. Phantasm's on. It'd be 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd be sitting there watching. Oh my God, the tall man's gonna kill us.
Right on.
But yeah, so I love this time of year.
Cool.
All right, so I want to talk about what we talked. And I mentioned in the intro, Potomac Records.
Geez, that's a part of my past
Okay.
now, but the concept was important to me when I started it. Um, I was so into. I remember the day MP3 came out. I am a technological guy. I fear getting older because I fear like every time a new phone comes out, it takes me longer to learn how to use it right and stuff. And I don't want to be that guy. I always youth to me is technology, right? You know what I'm
Oh yeah.
saying? And so I jumped on the bandwagon and I started Potomac Records with the concept that it was going to be one of, if not the very first, all digital record labels. We weren't going to make any CDs, and we weren't going to. We were going to distribute music. Music was already being distributed digitally, but we were going to be creative with everything and not print vinyl, CDs, or anything. And and then I got so busy with Bret's band that I passed it off to our former drummer of Bret Michaels Band, Mike Bailey, and Mike took it and ran with it for a few years. And I was kind of a consultant, so to speak, or I kept my nose in it a little bit. But eventually, it became all his. But I just, I just, I just wanted to help distribute music for people. I wanted. That's all it was. Just like anything, whether it's Dr. Dre or whoever starts a record label, I found some success in my own music business and found that I pulled a little more weight than other people locally, and I wanted to try to put my hand down and help some people up.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that with the younger generation. My friend's daughter, she's 16 years old. She's like, "Give me your phone. I'll show you how to." I was like, "Oh, what else does my phone do?" There's so
Yeah,
many
right.
things she shows me. I said, "Oh, really? I didn't know it did this."
Yeah.
Basically, I just
The
post a
last
text.
the last couple updates, my kids show me what to do, and I'm like, yeah, I remember showing them what to do, and it's changed now. And that
But
I don't want that. That's frightening to me, but I guess it'll come.
oh yeah, definitely. No, it seems like you're doing all right. I think you're doing well.
I know.
Well, in the intro, I mentioned all the different things you've done. So right now, I want to talk about you, Pete Evick, the author.
Yes.
So the book is called "The Moments That Make Us." Let's talk about that and how that came about.
All right. Interestingly enough, I just finished my second book.
Congratulations.
Uh, Me and another guy are writing it, Steve, and it's a completely different book. It's funny because when you mentioned earlier about authors getting typecast about writing the same thing, I hope that I'm able to do something a little bit different with this book than the other book. But The Moments That Make Us was actually started to be written about I went through a divorce, and everybody kept all I could think about was my fucking kids, man. Because I was on the tour, I had to continue to tour. It was my career. It wasn't like hey, come home and get a real job. It was a real job. It was a legit. I was making more money doing that than anything I could have come home to do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I just kept thinking about my fucking kids, man. And everyone would say kids are resilient. Kids are resilient. And I didn't want to hear that. I just did I just want and I kept thinking about everybody I know in my life, even me who comes from not a divorced family. Both my parents had families before me, but my parents were married till they died in my life. But I knew my dad's children had such horrible stories from the divorce. Um, and everyone I knew was broken from divorce. There was nothing you could convince me that my kids were going to be all right. And so I originally set out to write a book called kids are resilient, but what about the adults we become? Because it was those that was, and the publisher said, boy, that title's too long. but but the concept was that everybody watches their kids and go, oh, this seems like they're doing fine, but you don't know what you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those scars, a lot of those scars don't come out until you're married yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're an adult in life and you realize what happened. And so this just consumed me. And I sat down to write a book to inspire people to save their marriages, is what it started as.
Mm-hmm.
And I started it by telling stories about me as a kid. I don't know what happened, to be honest with you, where it swayed. But eventually, as I was turning in the chapters to the publisher, they came to me and they said, this isn't about divorce. This is about life in general. This is about, it's way bigger than what you think it is. The stories you're telling aren't just about making sure your kids are okay. And so we changed the title to The Moments That Make Us, and my focus shifted to defining moments in my life that stopped me on a dime. And if I was going this way, I went that way.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of it wasn't for everyone to read my stories. The point was that maybe it would inspire other people to do that same soul searching. There's a lot of people that don't know why they ended up this way or why they ended up that way. And I just thought a lot of people don't really retrace what made them who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wrote, of course, these stories that seemed oddball. And the point was that you find yourself in the strangest moments that you sometimes don't even remember happened. But if you start doing, regressing on yourself and figuring out, you go, oh, that one moment, I tell the story in my book about being in the mall with my mother. And my mom used to always buy me popcorn and we walked through the mall. And this was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was into middle school. Everything changes where I came from. Everything changed in middle school. Like the second year in middle school, you were supposed to be cooler and grown up and hipper. And there were middle school dances, and there was, a lot of things that I think a lot of people think about happen in high school happen in middle school. Anyway, we went to the mall one day. Once I started sixth grade, my mom bought me this popcorn, and I was walking with my mom, and I was just happy little kid, and I saw some new kid from the middle school, and the kid didn't do anything, but my brain all of a sudden went, oh man, I don't want him to see me with this popcorn. I'm supposed to be cool now. You know what I'm talking about? Like, yeah. And in that second, in one brief second, a piece of my innocence was stripped. You know what I mean? But it led me on a path. That day I became someone else. Mm-hmm. And that those moments, every one of us are filled with those moments, every single one of us. And I wanted to inspire people to trace those moments and maybe learn who they are.
I love it.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to write this book?
Felt like it's 90 years. Because I was so busy with Bret's band and I was still dealing with the divorce and changing my whole life around. I wrote the entire book on airplanes.
Wow. That must have been difficult. I can't imagine doing that.
Well, airplanes were the only place that I found peace because I didn't have the internet. My phone wasn't ringing. It was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would write a chapter every time I got on a plane, but half the chapters I threw out. And then I'd also have to be inspired. So I had to not be exhausted or tired. Mm-hmm. It took me maybe 3 years to write the book, but every single chapter was written on an airplane.
I'm guessing was it written on a laptop? I can't imagine writing on longhand on an airplane. that would be really difficult.
No, I can't even read my own name when I write it. Like my manuscript, my handwriting is a disaster. No, I typed it all. Sometimes I would type chapters on notes on my phone, the note app on your iPhone. But it took me about 3 years to make it.
So did you ever sometimes, your schedule's all over the place too. Did you ever get inspired at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, all right, I got to write this down now before I forget?
So I got to tell you about that. And this happened to me just the other day. I have this thing where, how do I say it? That happens a lot. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll go, fuck, man, I got the greatest idea in the world. Right.
Hmm.
And then I used to get up and do it. And 9 times out of 10, I it turned out to be a terrible, useless idea. So now my theory is if I wake up in the middle of the night and feel that way, if I remember it in the morning, then it was a really good idea.
Ah,
So I don't do that anymore. I'll lay in bed and think about it all, but I will not get up and and act on it, because that's the test. If I still think it's a good idea in the morning, then it was a good idea.
yeah. Now, is this second book a work of nonfiction as well?
Yeah. Yeah. But this one is about the music business. It's about my journey.
Ah,
It still starts as me as a kid, uh, and goes up to me being in Bret's band. But it's not a dirt thing from Motley Crue. I tell some wild stories and some fun, but I'm not into that. That's ridiculous. That the dirt is the stupidest bunch of tales in the whole world. It's a cheap shot that and you even ask Vince, and Vince is like, I don't remember any of that. That stuff ain't true, you know. But
yeah,
there's some debauchery in it, but there's also just my journey.
yeah. Well, I love that. You know what gets me mad? I interviewed David Ellison from Megadeth, and I'm sure you know his story. He didn't want to
I
talk
know
about
Dave.
Megadeth.
Dave's my friend.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and I feel so bad for him because I even mentioned that he didn't want to talk about Megadeth. I said I really don't care about that. We talked about his movie and everything else he's done, but the fact that I mentioned to, I said bands like Motley Crue had their whole careers off of stories that were way worse than what he did, and they brag about it like it's a badge of honor. And this guy was doing something private, it was consensual, and he gets fired. It's just
Yeah.
that got me pissed off. It's like,
Well, Mustaine, I
well,
mean,
yeah, I already know about him too. Like, I don't know him personally, but I know people that do know him. Yeah. So
you
you
know.
don't even have to say a word about him.
Yeah.
It's just, I think I even said, like, off the air, I said, David, I think you're better off. And he agreed.
Yeah, I'm pro Ellison, always have been. I love him.
Yeah, I met him several times before I interviewed him, and he's always been a gracious, down to earth, nice guy. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
There's no air about him, and obviously you're friends with him, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that he's found success now after everything that happened.
Sure. Absolutely.
So when do you expect the second book to come out?
After the first of the year, I was hoping to have it out by Christmas, but I'm having a hard time editing. The manuscript's done, and then I'm going through this book, I didn't write it. I dictated my stories, and then someone else wrote what I was saying, and then gave me a manuscript, and then I'm going and fixing the misunderstanding, so to speak. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, we'll go through that process. And I wanted to have it done by now, but some things have happened that have kept me and Brett busier than we expected to be this time of the year.
Yeah. Now, with the other book, with the editing, did you edit it yourself, or do you have a beta reader that said, "Why don't you take
Buddy,
this out?
I,
This doesn't sound good."
I can't spell my kids' names. I didn't edit anything.
All right, well, that pretty much answers that question.
Yeah.
That's funny. How many drafts do you normally write? Like, I know this one you're dictating, but for the first book, how many drafts did you write before you said, "All right, I'm happy with this"?
Each chapter had about 3 passes.
Okay, that's funny because that's exactly what I do. I write one. First one was longhand, then I would type it out, then I would go through it again just to see all the
Yeah.
errors that I had, and then have somebody look it over, and then I'd say, "Okay, I'm done."
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to quit. You got to, just like producing a song, you just have to stop. You have to go, this is it.
No, it's funny you said that because I was at the time when the book came out, I was part of a writing club. So there's a lot of different authors in there, and everybody was saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm not done yet. I'm not quite done." I said, "You're never going to get it perfect." And I actually was teaching one of the classes, and my class was called "Perfection is the Death of Good." You're
Yeah.
never going to get it perfect. Just get it as good as you can get it, and get out and go on to the next day. Either you're just going to kill yourself saying, "Oh my God, well, if I dot this T, wait, let me cross this I one more time." It's like, no, it's good. Just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
But I think unfortunately, with the people I'm thinking of right now, I think they were more afraid of actually releasing it and having people
There's a
judge.
lot of people that use that as the reason why.
Yeah,
But the real reason is they don't want rejection.
exactly. For me, I mean, all the things I've done, as I mentioned, like bands, stand-up comedy, there's always going to be people that love me and people that hate me. I don't really care. It's like, I
Yeah.
love what I do, and I'm very confident in what I do. And if you don't like it, well, then move on, because there's other
Yep,
people that do like it. So let them get up front. So,
very much.
and you've worn so many hats so far in this world. I want to talk about another thing you've done. It's called the Shining Soul Candle Company. Let's
Yes.
talk about how that came into existence.
Uh, that again was a birth of, much like the book, through my divorce. I was coming home to an empty house after 9 years or 9 months of being on the road through the season, through Rock of Love and all those TV shows. And it was the first time in my life that I just didn't want to play the guitar. I've been playing guitar since I was 5 years old, and I didn't even want to look at the thing. I loved it. I wasn't angry at it. I just was burnt, you know.
Yeah. Mhm.
Never had a hobby in my life. Don't play sports. I like Star Wars movies and I like guitar, and that's it. And I just didn't want to play the guitar. And I was sitting alone at my house, and I lit this candle, and it was supposed to smell like a wood burning fireplace, and it didn't. And I remember like 3 o'clock in the morning sitting there going, I wonder if I could do this. I wonder if I could make a better candle. And so I went to the hobby store the next morning. I crack up because I don't think I'd showered for like 3 days. You come off the tour and my family's not at my house anyway. And I was just kind of sitting there. And I went in there, and there's, you went to Michael's, the hobby store, and it's like all these, mothers buying their kids projects stuff for, school projects and stuff. And here's this guy with my hair unwashed for 3 or 4 days and just strumming all the sheets. I think they were probably horrified. Like, what is this guy doing? And I remember going, do you have candle making supplies? And the woman just pointed me in a direction, and I went home and became obsessed. And
I love that.
it was greeted with the same. It was the first time I felt the passion for something the way I did about the guitar.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, I just wanted to know everything. I was consumed by it. It was all I could think about. And I was just into it, and it's into it. and then, and then I wanted to teach my kids some entrepreneurial skills.
Hmm.
Maybe they weren't going to go to college. Maybe they weren't, whatever. so, so I started a website, and then I just grew it from there. There's a lot of stories about what happened, but it went from making candles in my kitchen to, we have 3 stores in 3 different states. We have a
Wow.
manufacturing warehouse. We employ probably 30 some people, maybe 20 some people. And other than our own 3 stores, our products are sold in over 200 stores around the country.
Wow. You know what I love about that story is because so many people, something comes out and I hear people say, "Oh, I could have done that," or "I could do this." Well, then why don't you do it? Just stop talking about it. I love the fact that you have an idea, instead of just talking about it or thinking about it, you actually do it. You become obsessed with something, you find out everything
You
about it,
have to do
make
it.
it the best. I know exactly.
Here-
I'm very similar. Like I told you, all the things I've wanted done. People say to me, "Why do you have to do so much?" Why not? I have many interests. Why not explore them? Why not have fun with what I'm doing? And
Right.
yeah, so
Tools are there for anyone to do anything right now.
oh my God, yeah, just go on YouTube and you can find out how to do anything right now.
Anything. So why not do it? Right.
Well, how'd you come up with the name, the Shining Soul Company, which is spelled SOL?
So soul is for sun, shining soul. Uh, I was in such a dark place in my life that I wanted, I wanted positivity. I wanted light. Um, I just wanted, even though I wasn't a super happy person, I wanted to create something just like writing a song that would make other people happy. I wanted it to be about brightness. You know, my original record label that my band Some Odd Reason was signed to was called Soul 3 Records, SOL 3. And so, but for months, I kept trying to think of a name, and nothing. Like I couldn't come up with anything. It was making me fucking crazy, to be honest with you. And one night I was in a hotel room in North Dakota, just sitting there in the dark, and it hit me like someone gave it to me. It was like playing it in my head like an alien implant. Like all of a sudden, the name was just in my head, Shining Soul. And I called a few people, asked them what they thought. They thought it was good. And to this day, I don't know where it came from, but it was a gift.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, you and your store have won several awards, so let's talk about that.
I guess we won, we've won best retail shop a handful of years in a row. Um, uh,
Congratulations.
they gave me a business of the year when we
Wow.
first opened, from the city and the government. Um, And then one year the city of Manassas gave me the Man of the Year award for which is weird. Spend all your life being a decadent rocker, and all of a sudden you're on a front of a parade floating down being the Man of the Year, right? But they gave me that because of my contribution to the city, because of the because of the business and what I built the business and bringing people to our town. So it's been a super cool ride doing that and creating something. It's a lot like writing a song. You make up a new candle or a new candle scent. It's much like writing a lyric. You got to come up with something familiar. Like you said, people like familiarity. You have to come up with something familiar but different at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like the music business in that way.
Now, are you still a big part of it, or do you have somebody that you sort of handed it over to and let them handle all the business?
No, no, no. In fact, the reason I was late for this interview was I was over at the warehouse.
Oh, okay.
I had to come running over to the house to do it. No, we're hands on. Me and my partner are still hands on very much.
Oh, good. Love it. All right. So this is going to be a hard hitting question. Hopefully you can handle it. Why is soy wax better than paraffin?
I mean, that's an easy question. The soy stuff's 100% natural.
Okay.
All natural. If you do enough research about paraffin, you find out that it's basically motor oil.
So nothing but the best. That's why you win all these awards. I love it.
Yeah. So paraffin just has toxins in it and stuff, and the soy is 100% natural stuff. I mean, there's process involved in converting it from soybeans that the paraffin world will try to fight you and explain to us why it's not natural now. But even if you find a reason to call soy not natural, it's still 90% better than using the paraffin. The paraffin wax is the stuff, that black soot you get on your walls and ceilings when you burn candles. That's the chemicals in the paraffin wax. Yeah.
See, things I never knew until now. Thank you. So how many different scents do you carry?
We change all the time, but at any given time we have about 85 or 90 different fragrances. We keep talking about slimming that down. It's overwhelming to try to keep control of, but every time we think, oh, let's get rid of this, and then we'll like stop making it for a week, and then all of a sudden everyone want it. You know what I mean? So you just gotta. It's a lot of variety, man.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, all right, what's the average price for an award-winning candle?
Our large jar is $28.
That's not bad at all.
See, it's not bad. I keep telling my partner, inflation. So
you can go into one of these stores and it'll be like $50, and you're getting nothing but the best stuff. So $28, I'm going to buy one from you. So actually, that's a good segue. Where can people find? Can people go online and purchase items there?
ShiningSoul.com.
Shining, and that's, remember, SOL. I'm going to have this on the screen scrolling as we're talking, so people can go on there and buy the best award-winning candle. Come on.
Thank you so much.
Hello. Right. So I have a couple more questions. I really do appreciate you coming on the show. I'm having a great time. This is so much fun.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I want to go back to the music for a bit. Have any of your songs ever appeared in movies?
Movies.
Because there's one movie in particular I was reading about. I'm not sure if maybe it was your music or you were a part of.
Oh,
Sharknado.
Well, is Sharknado a movie or is it a series?
It's
movies. They're movies.
I guess if you want to get technical, it might be a series, but it's a series of movies.
Me and Bret's song "Get Your Rock On" appears in Sharknado.
Okay,
the same episode that he's in. Yeah. But my music's been in tons of TV shows, but I think that's the only movie it's been in.
Okay, very cool. All right, so now, what advice would you give to up and coming musicians?
The most important advice you give, musician or not, is to bet on yourself. Don't sit around and wait for someone to help.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. The tools are there for you. I'm not that old schooler. I hate the financial side of the streaming industry and how we all got fucked, because we did get fucked, but we let that happen to ourselves.
Yeah.
But the rest of the tools and the rest of the, people still talk about the internet like it's brand new, man. iTunes, I downloaded iTunes the day it came out, and I think that was 21 or 22 years ago, right? Maybe 23 even, right?
It's about that, yeah. It's
so we're a quarter of a century into this. And sometimes you talk to guys my age and they act like it just happened 2 weeks ago, like the first streaming platform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the tools were out there. I remember when AOL first came out, and they had a search engine where you could type interests, and people that were AOL members that might have had those same interests would come up and list so you could contact them. Kind of like friending someone on Facebook, but it was a much more complicated process, and I would spend hours typing Van Halen, Kiss, Poison, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, and anyone that come up, I would just hit them up. Hey, I mean, I'm talking thousands of people in days and weeks of doing this. But to me, it was this incredible tool. Instead of just playing a local bar for 20 of your friends, I all of a sudden had the ability to at least reach the entire world with my music. As archaic as that version of that was, I embraced it from day fucking one. And those tools are just bigger and better now. But you have to do it yourself.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what I was saying before. And I said, that's why one of the things I respect about you is that when you have an idea, you don't just talk about it, you actually do it. So like you said, just do it. And I like another good point you made was that it's been around for a while. It's not going anywhere. It's probably going to become even more extreme in the future. So embrace it, find out how you can monetize it. And an example would be more movies, but do you know who Kevin Smith is? He's a guy. All right. So I love Kevin Smith, but even he said when that first came out, he goes like this, I do a lot of shit for free, like podcasts, this and that, but then I'll have other things. People get to know who I am and then they'll buy my other shit. So he goes, I learned to use the media and to my advantage, and he'll do all these free things, but then he'll get people to buy stuff. And for musicians, I think it's good in a way, only because maybe I go and say in the 70s and 80s, I go to a record store, I'm like, I don't know, I've never heard this band, I'm maybe don't want to waste my money on this, but now I can stream something and I'll say, oh my God, these guys are great. Next time they're in town, I'm going to check them out, and then I'll buy a shirt, I'll buy some other things from you. So in that way, you might get more people listening to you and say, you know what, when they're in the area, like you, for an example, like Pete Evick's going to be in Connecticut in December, can't wait to see him.
Yep.
So I think that's good that you, and I agree with you, you have to embrace it. You can't, it's not going anywhere. It's not going to suddenly disappear. It's not brand new. So just find a way to work with it.
Right. And do it yourself. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Don't wait to get discovered. Get out there and put yourself out there.
All right. So before we go, I have two more questions. And this one, I'm curious to get an answer on. Who is, or what is Bobo the Blue Heeler?
Bobo the Blue Heeler. Bobo the Blue Heeler is my my girlfriend's dog, actually, and he's a service dog. I don't want to. I usually don't involve. That's her business to tell, but
okay,
he's a service dog.
Okay,
but he's a blue heeler, and if you do your research on Boba, or if you do your research on blue heelers, they are considered one of the top 3 smartest dogs in the world. And when we got this dog, she trained it for the purposes, but he's so fucking smart, it's scary. I don't know what to tell you about it. It's like watching the raptors in Jurassic Park learn.
Okay.
It's just like that. He opens and closes doors. He is so, with 100% honesty and certainty, I'm telling you. So perhaps, example, I have 3 different pairs of shoes: my boots, my Vans, and my tennis shoes. I can say to him, go get my Vans. He can differentiate and bring me which pair of shoes I'm looking for.
Wow. Okay. That is smart.
No, it's ridiculous. And there's so much more. I can't even begin to tell you how much more there is. But he's a beautiful looking dog, and he has over 15,000 Instagram fans. And
that's funny. And
he was the first non-human to ever be invited by NASA to be a non-human ambassador at a rocket launch.
I love it.
He went to rocket launch. There's 3 different colleges that have entertained studying him because of his intelligence. And again, you can find he's not one of a kind. His breed's one of a kind. he's certainly special, but you can find there's tons of them. These blue healers that they're like little raptors, man. um, and he is uh, about to be in the Guinness Book of World Records
Wow, congratulations.
for the most consecutive ball catches in a row.
I have to say that Bobo Blue Healer is going to have another Instagram fan
Yeah,
right after we end this interview.
Boba as in Boba Fett from Star Wars.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
But Boba also is part of the reason I'm still alive. He COVID was brutal for me, and I love that dog. And he kept things interesting when the world got real boring.
Now, what makes these dogs so incredible?
I don't know, man. I don't know enough. They're part of that. There's 3 of them in the line. There's the Australian cattle dog, Australian Shepherd, and there's one other dog in the group. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, man. That's all her thing. Dog just lives with me, but it's mind blowing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing just to hear it. So I can't imagine actually seeing it. The closest I came to that is my parents, when I was growing up, had a West Highland White Terrier, and whoever had it before my parents had the dog in shows, and they taught it how to silent bark. So every time it needed to go outside, it would just come up to you and go.
Yeah.
It was
hilarious.
Cool. Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, Boba has the buttons, which is real popular now. You can see tons of dogs have these, which actually shows the process of just evolution in the animal itself. But there's a bunch of buttons with different words on it, and he knows which button's which to. I want to go out, or I want to play, or I want water, or I want food. So you can have conversation with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel kind of dumb compared to Boba.
It's like that movie Conga. Do you remember that movie Conga?
Oh, I love that movie. Michael Crichton.
Amy, good gorilla. It's a lot like yeah. It's a lot like that. Yeah.
All right. I'm definitely going to be checking this out after we end this interview.
Yeah.
So I have one more question for you, but I just want to say once again, thanks a lot for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you. I love your music. Congratulations on all your success.
Oh, thank you so much, man. And I apologize if I was brutally sick yesterday. I was kind of down for the count. I'm still getting over it. So if I'm a little soft-spoken or tired, I apologize, man.
No, well, you know what? I appreciate you coming on the show because I know you and I have been going back and forth, as I mentioned earlier. So the fact that you're on here and you sounded great. So no worries at all. You definitely sounded clear, and in that condition, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Because I know you got the candle company, you got music, you got everything else going on. Yeah. So I appreciate it. So before we go, though, I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
What's next, and where can people find you?
Well, the new book is what's next.
Yes.
With Bret, there's going to be a big announcement about what we're doing with Bret in the next couple of weeks. That's huge for him as a solo artist. I'm happy for him and happy for what we're going to get to do, but it's his story to tell. But keep an eye out for exciting news about the Bret Michaels Band during the summer. And I hope to write some new music. And again, in December, I'm doing that acoustic tour all over the country with Chad from Faster Pussycat. But right now I'm about to go into the holiday season with the candles. So that takes focus because the retail season during the holiday is, all hands on deck for that.
Yes, I can imagine. All right. Well, once again, congratulations and all. And I look forward to meeting you in person in December.
I can't wait, buddy. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. That wraps up the latest episode of The Claw's Corner. A huge thanks goes out to guitarist, singer, songwriter, producer, author, and entrepreneur Pete Evick for taking time out of his busy schedule to be on the show. Really do appreciate it. I also need to thank John Bristol of Elmwood Productions for without his superb editing every week, this show would not be possible. So it's always greatly appreciated. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Now available in one collection. Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror. Available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
sudden I hear, brim, brim.
What's a diaphragm again?
Ha! We caught one.
They're supposed to be weird.
Oh, yeah, no. If you say so.
I've always wanted to be in a movie.
Waiting around for autumn, waiting around for autumn.